I am now selling merch. Click the link in the description to get yours today. It's another year, and that means we have another Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. And this book is called Diary of a Wimpy Kid No Brainer. It was a no-brainer that I would have to buy it and make a review. I have to say, it was interesting to see the build-up to this book. Usually I see people talking about the new book, what they think it'll be about. But with this book, I heard almost nothing. I even saw some people put comments on my video saying that they didn't even know the new book had come out yet. I guess people weren't as excited for this one, but I was, and that's all that matters. Okay. I made a whole video of me going to Barnes & Noble to pick up the book, and as usual, Barnes & Noble gave me a free thing with it. I've gotten stamps, tattoos, a bag, and even a poster. So, what did I get this year? It was just another bag. Not really anything crazy. It's a good bag, but the poster was a lot cooler. But with all that, let's get into the book, and I'll tell you my thoughts. I always have to point out the depressed dad in the back of the line. He can never be happy. But hey, at least Manny is second to last. I guess that means he'll be in the book less, and I'm fine with that. So the book begins with Greg talking about his brain and how he wishes he could separate it from his body. I mean, the book is called No Brainer, so I guess he had to talk about his brain at some point. But that segues into Greg talking about how much he hates school and saying teachers don't really teach you anything. Hey, wait a minute. I thought these books were supposed to have a positive message for kids. Okay, never mind. Also, I have to point out that one of the teachers' names is actually Mrs. Kwan, and that's the same name as the nanny in The Cat in the Hat. That information will change your perspective on life. You're welcome. Anyway, things got so bad in the school to the point where the old principal had to come back and try to fix it. And then there's this little side story where there used to be these books with a crocodile, but some Karen complained and said that he was wearing no pants. So the teacher drew pants on every picture, but then even more Karens complained and said that all the animals in every book weren't wearing clothes. So in order to read these inappropriate books, you have to go to the back room. Yeah, no comment. I never heard of a middle school having a back section with books, but... And then in typical Wimpy Kid fashion, we get a bunch of other side stories that really don't need to be there other than to fill the book up with more stuff. I've heard both sides of the argument if this is a good or bad thing. Some people like the books to be one story without it derailing too much, and you can follow it all the way through. Kind of like how Diaper Overload was. But then other people like to have it where it's many different stories, so it feels more like a diary. I understand both of those arguments, and I would say I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't mind where moments go off track, but you don't want to overdo it. I only say that because this book has many moments like that, where it will start talking about something completely random to the point where it doesn't even make sense. There's a part where Greg says he has to go through security every morning to get into the school, but then a couple of pages later, they're bringing axes and shovels to dig for money. This school has the worst security I've ever seen. Apparently, you can just bring anything in. Also, this teacher is named Mr. Balls. I do like this moment though where Greg gets blamed for breaking the handle and has to fill out a form. It's just classic Greg not caring at all, and that's what I love about his character. But back to the review. It's honestly kind of hard to talk about what's happening in this book. It's just random stories that aren't even worth mentioning because I want to try to keep this review more focused on the main story, but there really isn't one yet. There's something about the old principal going to jail, another thing about them loving fudge dogs. I can't even keep up. Basically, more stuff keeps happening, like bugs are getting in the school, and the main idea is the school needs to save money. So all these side stories are basically the school needs to cut costs, but I guess they have enough money to buy a robot. You always gotta love when the random robot gets introduced, just like in Rocky 4. That's how you know the story has just gone crazy. However, I will say the book goes in different directions, but it stays pretty consistent on the idea that the school needs to save money and it's just terrible. So at least it's not too crazy where Greg has a random flashback or something and it just has nothing to do with the school. At the same time though, you don't really get to see any of the family or friends, which is definitely a shame, but I guess there's 18 books now, so they can't be in every one, I suppose. Some more stuff happens. The school introduces this premium thing where you get special treatment. The school is starting to put advertisements up and a bunch of other random stuff. This book should have been titled Diary of a Wimpy Kid Random Poop, or I got an even better one, Diary of a Wimpy Kid Urinals. I say that because for some reason, there is so many of them in this book. Every other page almost, you'll see one. It's even on the back of the book. I don't know what the obsession is, but you'll see it a lot in this thing. Anyway, they changed the name of the middle school because the old name was named after the guy that went to prison. And the principal starts to rent out rooms in the school for people to use. They do all of this to get money. If you didn't know by now, the school needs money. There's really nothing else happening besides that so far. Trust me, you don't need to know the context. Seeing the picture by itself is actually better. But wait a minute, did Jeff Kenny just mention an older character? Basically, while the school is doing an auction for different stuff, Mr. Gupta is one of the people that bids. That's the closest we'll get to an older character being mentioned, at least in the newer books. And it's not even Chirag, it's just his dad. But if you think that's random, that's the whole book actually. So I'm not surprised Chirag's dad made an appearance. And then in the auction scene, the mom goes up against someone else so they can have their kid become the principal for the day. Greg ends up winning that, and what do you know, things go wrong. They start blaming Greg for stuff. It really adds nothing to the story. So I'll just show you this random picture of Greg kissing a pig out of context. But finally we get to what I thought this book was going to be about. We find out that the state will close the school if the grades don't go up. The reason I thought that's what the book was going to be about is because it's actually in the summary on the back. But the school shutting down doesn't even happen until 166 pages in. Anyway, the school is splitting up the students in half, and Greg finds out that him and Rowley might end up in different schools. So Greg tries to do good on the test so the test scores can go up and the school can stay open. But it doesn't go well and the school shuts down anyway. Well, that's a fail. Because of that, Greg has to go to the new school and Rowley went to the other one. There's really not much mentioned after that of Rowley. I guess Greg didn't really care about him. But anyway, for Greg, things are going great. And this is because he can read the time and make fudge dogs. So now he's the most popular kid in school. And you won't believe what happens next. Because of his popularity in the new school, Greg actually gets a girlfriend. Wow, that came out of nowhere. I did not expect that. And no, it's not Holly Hills. It's a new girl named Sophie. They go on a date, but the dad is also there. And he's actually the son of the person who went to prison earlier. At first, the dad doesn't really like Greg because he's from the other neighborhood that they're like competing against with or whatever. But then Greg can speak another language, so he ends up loving him and reopens the middle school. Also, I like this little callback to the first book. It's the same picture from the original. But after that, Greg and Sophie break up. Wow, that lasted as long as any other typical middle school relationship. What was that, one day? I guess Greg's single now, and that's the end. I will say, I always have fun reading these books. It takes me back to when I originally started reading them, and I always love thinking about those memories of just reading the original and then going through every book and all. So I always like that. But as a book on its own, it's just fine. I like it to be a little bit more focused on one story rather than it going all over the place in different directions. I don't really see this one leaving too big of an impact on the rest of the series, so I would say it's just okay. I feel like many fans will forget about this one and won't really remember it in the long run. But now with all that being said, I have to do the classic ending with these videos where I destroy the book in a different way. Good thing I got this bag. It was a no-brainer. I have to destroy this